G'day everybody, how you going? I'm Benno and welcome to the shed. It's been a pretty full-on few weeks since the last video. Life gets in the way of YouTube sometimes. And I actually haven't done much work on the 80 series in that time. I've been flat out working. Coming up to Christmas time, I work in the transport industry and it is just gone crazy. I have had a little bit of time to do some measurements, or to do those measurements, I've had to save up a fair whack of cash to buy some pretty spot on precision tools. So I lashed out and I bought a micrometer set. It's not the top of the range, it's not the bottom of the range, it's mid-range. I already had this set of internal gauges. Insert them into the bore, tighten the holding screw, and then measure that with the micrometer. Problem with this is it's very difficult to get a consistent measurement, particularly in the bores where there's 6 different measurements that you need to take, and it's very hard to keep these centered and aligned. So I found that wasn't terribly successful. So I've gone and lashed out and I've spent big dollars on this. This is a bore gauge. So it's self-centering. It'll center itself quite well into the bore, and use that. Okay, so once you're set up, that will align itself with the bore. So this one is set up at 100 mil. 100 mil is my base. I want to know how much over or under 100 mil that my bores are, and most of them came in around about 100 mil 0.020 millimeters. Some are a little bit higher. A couple of pistons actually came in at the 99 mark on parts of them, but I think there's a carbon buildup in those bores, so that would make sense. So these are all the measurements that I've taken so far. Most of it looks pretty good, except there are a couple of little anomalies here. Cylinder number 6, actual measurement is very, very small, and I'm thinking that is due to the carbon buildup I was just pointing out a little bit earlier. Now the piston measurements seem to be a little bit weird too. I'm supposed to be working off Mark II. The pistons are marked 2B. I'm not quite sure what the B means. If you look at this, most of these pistons are coming into the range of Mark III. It's actually starting to confuse me a little bit. I'm not quite sure what's going on here with these. These measurements are a comparison between the piston sizes and the bore sizes. Bore size minus piston size gives you the oil clearances for positions A, B and C, and then that's averaged out. If it's between 0.04 and 0.06, it's a pass, and they seem to pass. So this measurement set is concerning me a bit, and I'll just go quickly over why. So these are the measurements for the crank journals. They're consistent at 68.5, but if we look to the right, the standard size is 68.982 to 69 mil. Undersize is 68.745 to 68.775 mil, which is still above what I've got. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here, whether I'm going to just try and plastic gauge it and see whether the clearances are right and go with the original bearings, or what I'm going to do. It's a bit outside of what I was expecting to see. Now the crank pins come in pretty close to what I would expect, and standard size is 56.982. I'm consistently be coming in at 56.98, so that 1/100th of a millimetre I don't think is a problem. The one anomaly here is piston number 3, or position 3, is coming in very small, 56.590, and position 3 relates directly to piston number 3, or cylinder number 3, which was giving me problems with very low compression. So I don't know whether these things are related or not. Just taking a quick look at the measurements for cylinder number 3. and they're all pretty good. They sort of come right into the good range. So I'm not sure whether the low compression has anything to do with the small crank pin size on number 3. Not sure what's to go there. So the next step is to place the gauges. I've got the crank sitting in the block. I've got all the bearing caps to go back in. Test with the flexi gauge, plastic gauge, whatever you like to call it. See if it comes into spec. This stuff's pretty hard to see. Might show up on the camera. But there's a push laid into each of the mains. Next step is to put the caps in place and torque them down to their full torque, and then undo them again and see how much that's squished out. Alright, so these get cranked down to 54 foot-pounds, and it gets done incrementally. So I'm going to do the first one to 28 foot-pounds, and it starts off, where are we? Starts there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, da 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 da. You've seen it all before. So you don't need to see the whole thing, but I'm going to torque these down, and I'll get back to you when it's all done. Okay, they're all torqued down to 30 foot-pounds at the moment. Crank it up a bit. So where are we? 56, 55, 54 foot-pounds. And we do it all again. Okay, so once they're torqued up as they are now to 54 foot-pounds, what we need to do is crank them 90 degrees. Good spot. Okay, so we crank it another 90 degrees. Whoa. It's trying to get away from me. Okay, so I'll go through all of that, come back to you. All right, and this is the last one. That's cranked down to specific torque. Now it's a matter of undoing all. Also, to remove the crank, once again, same old process, working from the outside in. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Undo them, lift the caps out, and we'll see how squished that plastic gauge is, and that'll tell me if the mains and these bearings, the original bearings, are within spec. Okay, they're all undone. So I might just get the rattle gun to whip them out a bit quicker. What was the time? Well, it's midnight, and yeah, it's still stinking hot in here. I suppose it is summer again. It never really cools down here. Okay, so that's all of them out. Can't really see it, but so you'll have to take my word for it. It should be 0.064, which I reckon that's spot on. 0.064. 0.064, 0.064, 0.064, and 64, 64, And the last one, which I can't see, this is a bit smaller, I think, or is it? Oh no, it's just my eyes. 0.064. Okay, 0.064 on all of them. Plastic gauge isn't 100% accurate, but it's, you know, gives you a pretty good idea of what your clearance is. I've just got to go look up the manual and see what I'm looking for. Let's go and have a look. At 0.064 millimeters, we're over the standard clearance, but we're still within the maximum clearance, which is 0.010 millimeters. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm probably going to reuse these bearings. So I should probably just clarify, even though the mains are coming in under the spec in the in the manual, I suspect that this crank may have been ground at some stage in the past. That's my guess, and it's been set up with a set of bearings to suit that grind. And given that the oil clearances are within tolerances, I think it's probably okay to reuse them as they are, and it might actually be hard to find the right size bearing shells to match this crank without sending it off to someone to measure it up and put special size bearings in. The bearings themselves do not show the wear I would expect to see for a 500,000 kilometre motor. So that's another thing that makes me think that this may have had a rebuild. The one other thing that I'm going to have to check is the crank pins where your big ends connect to on the crank. Number 3 is measuring small. Now, I'm going to plastic gauge that with the original bearings as well to see if the clearances are right. If the clearances are right, then it sort of confirms that someone has done a rebuild on this engine at some stage and given it a bearing set to suit this odd size crank pin. That's where I'm sort of sitting at the moment. Anyone's got any ideas, please let me know, because I'm sort of flying by the seat of my pants here. I'm going by clearances. If the clearances are right, then the shells must be right to the specific specific journals. Yeah, that's where we're at. It's been a bit of a mundane facts and figures and muck around video. So if you've made it to the end, good on you. You've sat through all the technical bullshit that I'm trying to work out in my head. If you've actually got experience with building one of these motors, please let me know. This is the first one I've ever done, and I'm not a qualified mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. I'm self-taught. I just follow manuals and try and work out things the best way I possibly can. So if you do have experience with these things, let me know. Drop us a comment. Tell me what you think. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, well, if you're new here, you probably haven't subscribed. Hit the subscribe button, and you'll see this and the rest of this. Eventually, we'll be seeing that thing in the bush. All right, I'm going to have a beer. Catch you later. Oh, and Merry Christmas if I don't get another video up. Something I forgot to mention is I have measured the crank runout, which is the circular runout. I've got a maximum of 0.06 millimeters of runout, or out of round. This crank came in at 0.01, which is pretty bloody good.